array initialization. And this basically means that we store values to the array when we declare it. So let's say that we have an array and we have constant int size, let's say it's 5. And then when we declare our array, we can do int. So the name of our array is tests again, size in here. And then this is equal to, and then in order to store values to the array when we initialize it, or when we declare it, is we're going to put our values between these curly braces. So let's say we want to do 79, 82, 91, 77, 84. So what this is going to do, if I draw the array, this is going to store these values to this array when we declare it. So this is going to have 79, 82, 91, 77, and 84 stored to each of these elements. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we initialize the array, we can't give it more values than the size of the array. So for instance, if this size is 5, we can only give it 5 values. We can't give it, say, 6. Although we could, and just look at partial array initialization. Let's say we only want to initialize part of the array. We can do that by just doing a partial list. So let's say that we have, let's say we have an array with 7 elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we want 1, 2, 3, 4 stored to the first 4 values, and then we just want zeros in these other elements. So what we can do is int numbers 7, and then just say that this is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're just going to leave the rest blank. And so what that's going to do is initialize the first 4 elements of our array to 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the rest of the array that's uninitialized is set to 0. So this is going to initialize these elements to the values that we specified, and then these final elements, so the elements in the array that weren't initialized to a value are set to 0. And I'm going to specify that this is the uninitialized elements. And so what I want to point out with this is that we can't do this. So let's say that we want to, let's say we wanted to do, let's draw this again. So let's say we want 1, 2, 3, and then we don't want to initialize this one, but let's say we want 6 and 7 here. So it looks like, based on what I just told you, that you could do something like int numbers 7 is equal to 1, 2, 3, and then leave a blank spot, and then 6, 7. So you can't do this. Once you have an uninitialized value, all of the values after that element have to be uninitialized. So basically, if you want to just initialize part of the array, the part of the array that you initialize has to be the first part, because once you leave something uninitialized, the rest of it has to be uninitialized. So let's consider local versus global array. So if we have a local array, the elements are uninitialized by default. So elements uninitialized by default. And if we have a global array, the elements are initialized to 0 by default. So initialized to 0 by default. One thing that we can do, let's say that we have int quizzes, we can actually leave this size blank if we initialize it to some values. So So let's say 12, 17, 15, 11. So what this is going to do is this is going to get the array size from our initialization list, and this is going to automatically initialize an array with 4 elements because we've given it 4 values. And so what this is called when we do this is implicit array sizing. And this is called implicit because it just gets the size from the size of our list. So the array size is determined from the initialization list. So when we declare an array, we must, so when we declare an array, we have to have either an initialization list or we have to have an array size. Basically, the compiler has to know the array size somehow. If the compiler doesn't know the array size, you're going to get a compilation error. So you can get the compiler the array size by either an initialization list or just giving it an array size, either an initialization list or an array size. So basically we can either do this or we can do int quizzes 5, or we could do int quizzes 5 is equal to, and then put our initialization list in the array. All of these will work for this array.